Good morning and welcome to The Connect. We are live this Tuesday. It is the 16th of June and you are with us here in a cold and cloudy Mbabane in the beautiful kingdom of Eswatini. So we'd like to welcome you. Yes, we are back on this format. As you can see, we're all set up for you. We are all dressed up, as I say, with somewhere to go. And that somewhere is right here. So thank you for choosing to be with us. We are live on YouTube and Facebook right now. So please tell your friends, join in on the conversation. We are talking arts. Yes, we are talking arts today. So send in your questions as usual. Tell us what you're thinking and what you'd like to know. So obviously I'm not alone, as you know. We've got a team behind the scene. We never get to see them because they're all dotted behind cameras and screens. So we'd like to say good morning to Pinky Nyandoro. We've got Linda Rego, and of course, there's Daniel Toro, DT Photography, and now DT TV. Can't keep a good guy down. He keeps growing and growing and growing. So yes, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for choosing The Connect. We are here just to have conversation, right, about what we care about, and giving us a bit of time to look around the continent and outside of our borders to what's happening around the world. Okay, so we always encourage diversity of opinion and perspective. So share yours with us. Remember, we are live. Send your comments through, send your questions through. Okay, so apart from the team that's behind the scene, I am seated here with two handsome gentlemen who are joining me today. There is Jiggs Thorne. Good morning, Jiggs.
Good morning, Shirley. How are you, love?
Welcome. Good. A bit cold today.
Yeah.
Hey?
Looking glorious.
Thank you. We're all warm here at the studio. And of course, on the other end, yes. So what's interesting is that I am the only host today because my other host has decided to be a guest on the show. And of course, it's the courtesy of hip hop.
Yeah, I got an upgrade this morning. I'm just like, leveling up.
Abandon ship. That's how I got the couch all to myself.
Yeah.
But really great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining in. We're going to delve into the conversation a little bit later.
Yeah.
I just want to invite you in to talk a little bit about all sorts of things that have been happening around the scene. So yeah. You will remember that last Tuesday, and the Tuesday before that, we were live on Instagram talking about leadership. So we had Sean Lowe and we had Errol Nemhart on, and just talking about what does the future of leadership look like.
Yeah.
So there were really some super nuggets around substance in leadership, what it's going to take to gravitate through a time like this. So there were really a lot of things, but I think what stood out for me from a lot of those discussions and some webinars I went on was this idea of humility. So it's this word somehow that makes us shiver and shake and shudder because it has so many different nuances and connotations. But humility seems to come up as something that is really front and center, talking this new style of leadership. And there's a question. So this is my question of the day to you who are following and listening in, but also to our panel today. Is, can you teach humility?
Okay.
So it's something we're all checking in. Okay, so, humility, is it a characteristic I have? What could it potentially look and feel like? But I think the question is, can we learn or can we teach humility?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to think that we can learn and teach it.
Yeah.
I think maybe coming to our situation at the moment, people say, things are happening for a reason.
Yeah.
And in essence, you need to be able to stop, reflect, breathe, absorb, still yourself, and allow, a reflection process to happen. That kind of humility of in a sense, kind of backing off and allowing the opportunity to absorb and to appreciate and to learn. I think there are people who have stood out people who have been able to kind of teach and live humility through their lives, people who we can look up to and, you know, learn from in terms of a way of engaging, a way of living, a way of relating. Humility is definitely something that we can learn, but it's also part of our inner being, and it's a means of kind of unraveling it, listening to it, and believing in it.
I like that. Courtesy for you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just to piggyback on what Jiggs said, I want to take it, you know, the biblical route, you know, because it's humbling yourself in the sight of the Lord that actually lifts you up, and I want to underline humbling yourself. So taking yourself through the process of humility, you know, because sometimes life will humble you, you know what I mean, and you don't want that. So it's actually key for you to humble yourself. So now that actually says to me that we do have the ability, and actually we actually have the sort of like the responsibility or the mandate to humble ourselves, especially if we want to engage the next gear or to elevate, you know, to the next level. When you listen around, you can hear that a lot of people are stuck, a lot of people are frustrated, a lot of people are in a space that they don't want to be in. They really just want to engage the next gear, but they just don't know how. And we, especially in the Pacific Institute space, know that sometimes you need to slow down for you to speed up, and that's exactly what allowing yourself to humble yourself will actually do for you. So yes, it's definitely...
It's kind of the, appreciating how the ego can get in the way, and how we can, you know, be driven by that egocentric process. And it is about being able to still the mind, be able to listen, and, you know, appreciate that there are other ways of going about our, you know, things. You know, as you're saying, Courtesy, at the moment, it's very challenging. We can get very fixed in the way we choose to see things, but I think humility does mean about, exposing oneself to the options out there.
I like that. I like that very much. I also think it takes courage. Right, because like you say, it's sort of exposing ourselves. It's being vulnerable in the space. But I think humility is also around how we see the world. So if we see it in hierarchical format, that could be something that we might need to relook. How am I looking at the world and people and situations, right? Because I think our job, and like you say, Jiggs, there's so many people we can learn from. It's also that idea that we are almost all at one. There is a sort of leveling of a field where I may have wisdom and experience, and I help people consistently cross over the road, get to the next point, you know, cross a river, over a mountain, whatever that is, but where we are together. And I don't look down or differently at people. So, and that takes courage, because I think very much, you know, depending on how we've been raised and what have you, it has an impact on how we see the world. So, over to you on the other end of the camera who are listening in. We are talking about, can we teach humility? But before we do so, we'd like to invite, welcome some people into the space. Nozipo, Thorne, that's Sasha. Hi, Sasha. I think the kids are also watching, Jiggs, because it's, hi Dad, we can see you. So listening in, Claudia Castellanos, good morning, hola. So great panel and topic of discussion this morning. Thank you. I hope you'll be sending in your perspective as well. Greg Wiggly, good morning. How are you from our TPISA space? Gail, how are you, Gail? Jiggs, hi from somewhere in Africa. Come on, Gail, you got to tell us where you are. So Gail, obviously heading up Mustard Seed, which is a beautiful organization, hey? And then we've got Rapula, Malayane. Hi guys, humility is so misunderstood, but when understood and applied well, it is amazing to watch. Yes, we have to agree. And I think it's one of those things, I don't know if you can say to yourself, I am humble. I think others also give you that appraisal. So like you say, Jiggs, it's not an ego thing. It's not something that we can declare on ourselves, but through our actions and how we show up, other people will then say, oh, that person is so humble. So, you know, so it's a, beautiful quality. Hello, Ntobe Sibia. Yes, courage, humility and vulnerability go together. Love that. So in the TPI space, you know, through the IIE curriculum, we talk about vulnerability and humility being sort of being able to recognize that I can be wrong because I don't always see everything there is to see. I'm almost seeing things from one perspective. And then I have the courage to actually go and ask for help. Or I say to you, Jiggs, or you, Courtesy, show me what you see. Show me what you know, and I will learn from you. So those two things very closely linked. And it's a concept and a principle we call chive. So for our friends and fans out there who have been through the process, you remember chive, and the first word is C for courage. So it takes courage to actually show up in that space and being willing to say, actually, I don't know. And through COVID, we had some beautiful stories of how leaders were saying, you know, the space, we've never been through this. I've never had to take teams or organizations or through a situation like this, and they're looking to me for answers, and I don't have them. And it was just to encourage leaders to say, well, if you don't, it's okay, but you need to be willing to go to the team and go, you know what, we're in this together. Let's all lean in around this table and find the solutions to the problem, because I just don't have the answers. So it's quite a powerful space. Okay, Julie, good morning. Thank you for coming in. Please keep joining us, ladies and gents. So we're talking arts today, absolutely. We need your questions, your perspectives. The question of the day was, can we teach humility? And we'll keep that conversation going. But let's move on to some news. News of the week, news of the day, news of the month. What are some of the stories that have stood out for you in all the buzz that's going around, right? There's obviously news, there's radio, there's TV, there's webinars, everything. What has stood out for you in what's going on at the moment in the world, Jiggs?
Sure, well, I'd like to take it home. The local times. We're a family at home who, you know, are trying to balance work and home matters during this time, and it's a real challenge. I think there's some amazing opportunities to be together. If you allow yourself, I'm kind of constantly struggling with feeling that, you know, the need to be doing things, you know, moving on, reimagining, you know, getting the workspace settled, and yet, you know, I have to have time at home. You know, we don't have domestic support at the moment, so it's trying to manage that space and feeling okay to be at home and to have uninterrupted quality time with family and allowing that to happen. That's a process I'm going through, which I'm kind of struggling with. I can imagine mum and the kids at home going, Dad, it's going to be all right. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, that's very honest, eh? That kind of juggling and the feeling like I need to be busy or I need to be productive, doing something, but being able, like you say, to almost just stop for a moment and look at it all. But those are real struggles, though, Jiggs, and I'm sure you're not alone in that. Courtesy, on your end, what stands out for you?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I can totally relate with what Jiggs is saying, because you know, when you approach life from like the shark sort of like mentality, where you constantly have to keep moving, and my philosophy has always been, I do this because I do not know how to not do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like I constantly have to wake up and create. I constantly have to, you know, find myself in a space where if I'm not elevating myself, I'm elevating somebody else. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. So now where you and I in this space where it's just like where we've been violently interrupted. You know what I mean? And and you're not in control of what's going on. It's a very tricky space, but when you know what we know in terms of the tools that we learn and teach here at the Pacific Institute, it just makes it a little bit easier when you understand the concept of like white space, for instance. You know, where just pause and remember that life will go on with or without you. So just check what happens when you allow life to go on without you. You know, where are you really needed? Where are your places of the most impact? So it's very interesting to see that. But for me, another thing that has been very frustrating has been the interruption in sports. I was looking forward to seeing how the 2020 NBA season was going to end, and just been following that. There's been start and stop. You know, they've been trying to get the guys back on the court, you know, without fans, obviously. But there's just been so many so many hurdles. Every time they want to kickstart so many hurdles. There was one game that was already set up, and just the day before the game starts, one of the players has got
tested
positive.
yeah.
Exactly. So now they just have to stop that completely. So this, we're talking about leaders not knowing what to do with this time and space.
Yeah.
Everybody's feeling it. Like all the different sectors, arts, sports, business, everybody's feeling it. So it's just interesting to watch and observe how leaders, but also everyone has sort of just like been thrown in the seat of the leader. First leading self, you know, just in terms of taking care of yourself and your family and your community and all of that. But yeah, it's just an interesting time and space to watch people as they maneuver these waters.
Yeah, these times,
these
the
times.
Days of our lives.
Yeah, these days of our lives. Yeah.
And I would love what you're saying, and what's going to be interesting, ladies and gents. So from an Eswatini perspective, kind of we've sort of opened up a bit, hey?
Yeah.
So we were on sort of what we called a partial lockdown, and you know there were different levels of partial. It was an interesting space. But now what has happened since Monday, sort of a lot of more industries are able to go back to a not full-time operational space, but pretty much go back to life. So a lot of businesses have kind of been breathing since yesterday, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that momentum grows, but also what the space looks like when people are now coming back into the office space. And I think that's going to be a very interesting discussion. As you know, a lot of people have been working from home, being very productive. And so now we need to see, you know, is it best for us to come back into an office space? Are people going to remain working from home? What are the choices and decisions that are being made in the business space? So it'll be an interesting one to watch, eh? And then obviously I think soccer's coming back on tomorrow. Premier League, I think. Okay, one person's excited.
At least
I've got a
something,
15-year-old at home who's finally breathing again.
Yeah.
Interesting thing I think I saw in the paper over the weekend, something about tech ball, which is soccer on one of these sort of curved tables. So it's sort of a ping pong but soccer. And that's growing in the country. So they're looking to put together actually an Olympic team because it's going to be an Olympic sport. So any young and aspiring people out there who are in a soccer space, there's futsal, there's obviously the traditional soccer, now tech ball. Yeah, there's some new things coming up. So I think it's exciting. Sports, yeah, we can get back in. So I'm with you
Yes,
there.
please.
Okay, I'm with you there. Right, thank you. Let's turn again to the monitor. We've got more people who have joined us in the room. Oh, we lost that. Are we going back to... Okay, so we have Musenga Chikopa. It's always a pleasure listening and learning from Courtesy and Jiggs. As a person who has a passion for the entertainment and arts industry, we appreciate this opportunity. He goes on to say, well, I'm not sure it's a he or she, but with regards to today's question, yes, humility can be taught, as Courtesy and Jiggs have already put it. You can either learn to control the egocentric aspect in all of us or allow life to harshly give you. Huh?
That wake-up call.
Yes, that wake-up call. Oh, that wake-up call. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm just following on. Thank you very much. Okay. So what else have we got? Yes, streaming from Lavumisa. That's Lunga Shongwe. Hello, Lunga. Great topic, enjoying every moment. Well, we're great to hear that in Lavumisa you've got good connectivity. Unthrottled is the new word. Uncapped and unthrottled. So that's great. Lunga, tell us how it is that you've got good connectivity in Lavumisa. Great to have you. Please share the news so that others can come on board. In the girl, we're saying good morning, Sanbonani, to Girl Boss Eswatini. We've got Sue, Neville, Kerry James, Kashmira. We've got Zine. Hello to you. Okay. Good. Right. So they're just giving me an ups there just to say that a lot of people are also on Facebook, yeah, and YouTube. So we are greeting you all. Thank you for coming on to the space this morning. Okay. Right, excellent. So a lot of stuff happening in the paper. We've got Dacha licenses that want to be issued. So that's a big discussion, and I'm sure we'll all weigh in on that as well. How do we see that opening up? And then, of course, we're looking at today's paper that talks very much about tourism industry, and I'm hoping we can get in an opportunity to have that discussion as well. So that will be an interesting one. Yeah, good. So as I said, we've got these two lovely people in studio today and we want to talk about the arts and the entertainment industry. Okay, so perhaps what I'll do is just introduce Jiggs to you. So as you know, an ode to bushfire. Jiggs, you've been known as Mr. Bushfire. I know it sounds like there was a
Jiggs on fire.
Jiggs on fire. I like that. Jiggs on fire. That works. Okay, so obviously many of us know that bushfire and Jiggs are synonymous. Those two things go together. But obviously there's a lot more behind the scenes. So many of you may have seen Jiggs even perform poetry. Yes? We haven't heard it in a while, Jiggs. Well, I know I haven't. But you are a poet, artist, and I love this. Visionary art director. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you write your own CV.
Yes, just agree, Jiggs. That's even better.
Yes.
That's how we would want to be. I love this one. Instigator and director of Bushfire International. I love that. Instigator. Hopefully we'll see a bit more of that coming out. And founding member of IGODA, which is a Southern African Music Festival circuit. So for many of you who have visited this beautiful kingdom, you may have come across the House on Fire space in Malkerns. So that's also, you know, where Jiggs calls that sort of home, right? That's a space where most of us have been, and that's really also the venue of this beautiful festival that takes place annually. I think what's really very pivotal for you, Jiggs, is also your love and passion about talking about the arts and how it should be formalized within schools, it should be curriculum, and we should change the lens and the perspective we have of when we speak arts and entertainment industry. And I'm hoping through our discussion today you really share your heart and your mind and your vision around that space with us. So Jiggs is in the house, and obviously I'm very proud wearer of the t-shirt today. So obviously many of you would have followed. We didn't all get together at Malkerns around fires and glühwein and you know, warm drinks this year, but something did happen, and maybe you were part of it. It all happened online, and we're going to talk to that experience as well. So thank you, Jiggs, for being with us again. And then on the far end, hostess who abandoned me today but is here as an artist, and I think that's a beautiful perspective that we get to see. After all, we do call him the courtesy of hip-hop, and it's not by chance. It is in fact because he is a hip-hop artist.
Yeah.
So great to have you, and he's got the t-shirt as well.
You know, just in case. People are not, is that him? Yes, it is.
Okay, so I think what we want to do is just launch into a gentleman. So there's much more to you than your bios and what people see and know from you. And I think we just want to get an opportunity for those who are on the other side of the camera to just get to know you a little bit more. Where did your stories really start? What is it that birthed, you know, what we see and maybe know of you today? So Jiggs, if I could start with you, where does your journey and your story around arts and the love for this space and being such an activist for it, where did that begin?
I like to feel it was kind of an innate thing, you know, a kind of a calling or a response to an inner need, and that I feel was to create. It was to explore the opportunities of really getting into a space that allowed you to explore a space where you were challenged, where needs could be met. I know Swaziland has always had an issue with a space that could develop the arts. So House on Fire in essence was about a space that could support local arts development. It was a story that kind of started a long time before that. I'd studied art and drama and politics at school and university. Various partnerships with artists, developing roadside sculpture. And you know, all of these streams, if you like, kind of ultimately culminated in developing a space which is House on Fire, as you know it. And you know, the space became part of the living experience. It became an artwork unto itself. It became the means to formalize the expression, if you like. And of course, it was also a stage where we could host, you know, multi-dimensional performance programs, music, theater, poetry, but it became, this kind of hotbed for local performance, and I like to believe it's kind of facilitated a growth and development within the arts in Eswatini. it's been an amazing process, and you know, looking back on it, you know, I think, you know, for everybody out there, I think there's always a question of, you know, what do I want to do? How do I do it? How do I achieve it? And if I look back, you know, there was this kind of initial feeling that, you know, propelled this vision forward. Yeah. And it's about going into that space, and it's about trusting in it. It's about realizing that you don't do it on your own. I've got an amazing family and team around me that supports and is part of this vision. But that, yeah, allowing yourself to go there is incredibly important, and trusting yourself is something that you really have to do. And then, of course, the rest is just honestly something that you appreciate, and you have the utmost thanks and blessings for, because as you see things unfold, the possibilities are numerous, and it has such a positive effect on your well-being and those around you. So I think the momentum that this vision has created through House on Fire, through the Bushfire Festival, through the Agoda Festival circuit has just really amazed me. And yeah, I think it's a big shout out to pursue that dream. And you know, if you are creatively inclined, that's okay. I think there's a lot of kind of concerns around you should be doing the right thing. You should be, you know, it's maths and science. And I know that's generally an issue around the world. Your parents want to be safe about your decisions. And you know, there's no reason why the arts can't be a very solid profession. And we need creativity more than ever. We need to be able to kind of, we need to challenge the framework. Yeah. We need to be able to reimagine, reinvigorate. You know, that's where we're at, I think.
Yeah, I love that. So it's allowing yourself to dream. I think that was quite key. Leaning in and trusting yourself. Hey, those are really key. I love what you also say, and I think that's what we need to be challenged in, is perhaps what we were thinking before around what is safe, what is traditional, is not going to get us into the future. And I think COVID kind of came and smacked us in the face, and I think has forced us all to rethink things. Yeah. You know, what we believed before real? Is that the truth? Is that the singular truth we've held on to? Is there potentially a bigger picture? And I love what you said about this kind of math, science. We're not all geared that way. There is a unique value proposition that each of us has, and I love yours has come to light, and we see it, and it's had a huge impact, and we'll hear more about that. But yeah, courtesy to you, I know you have a very specific story about that belief, you know, kind of that the science, the maths, the traditional way of thinking. How is your experience almost kind of flipped that script on its head? And share your story as well.
So yeah, I mean, growing up in Situashini Kawonga, and being raised by my grandmother, so obviously, one, there's already just like that generation gap situation going on. So when I come home one day, and you know, they always ask you that question, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I say, I want to be an artist. And they're just looking at me like, I'm crazy, like what's going on with this kid right now? But for me, it really just like, it's one of those things where it's, you don't decide that you want to be an artist. You know, art kind of like picks you and says, okay, I want to express myself through you. And then you kind of just then find what your art expression is going to be. I just remember from an early age, I always just loved standing up in front of people and performing. You know what I mean? Whenever there's guests in the house, I'm that guy, you know, who's just like trying to sing, trying to dance, trying to do something, you know, just to get some sort of attention. But then I remember vividly one day when my brother, uncle, so he's sort of like my dad's youngest brother, but because we were close age-wise, I just referred to him as my brother. He came back home with a MC Hammer cassette tape. So I'd always been exposed to Bonnie M and Stimela and you know, and Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton and all of that, just like musically, I just like always been exposed to that. Then he comes back home with a MC Hammer tape, and then and he put it on and he pressed play. And I remember sitting in front of the radio, I was watching the radio because I was like, this guy there's music involved, but he's not singing. He's not doing what the other people are doing, like in terms of vocally. But like, so this is how I was introduced to rap. And I was like, oh snap, this I can do. This, like I connected with it immediately. So that's when sort of like, just like that fire, caught on, like that spark was lit. And honestly, from that day, I just never looked back. So then growing up, and then just talent, just like anything else, requires for you to work on it, to sort of just like build on it. And the conversation came up again, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, no, I'm going to be an artist. I remember the family gathering around, and so they called a family meeting to pray for me, to say, okay, this boy is out of his mind. He's insisting that this is what he wants to do. But, and I will always say this to, especially to parents, that you must remember that kids are born through us, but they're not born for us. You know what I mean? We're just sort of like the vessels that bring him into the earth. And if anything, I've discovered that I was born to do this. You know what I mean? Like I think you can maybe relate with this, Jiggs, that you can't even think about the fact that if you were not doing what you're doing right now, what else could you be doing? You know, it just doesn't even occur to you, because this is the light that's shining from the inside. You know what I mean? I wake up in the morning and I'm excited and I look forward to do this. There's nothing else that I feel like, actually makes sense to me. So in as far as where did this start, I'll borrow from something that Kupo Intellectual said. You don't start being an artist, you just pick up from where others before you left off. So I'm just running that race where others before me left off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Kind of following on from this energy and this love
Absolutely.
of the arts, and then you kind of
Absolutely.
join that movement. I
Yeah.
love that. So yeah, let's come to these comments that are coming up. So Toby Thorpe, hello. This is great. Toby's in the UK. That looks like a friend or a family member. Yes,
yeah.
great. Thank you for joining us. Kumbulane Moyo, Kumbulane connecting from Pretoria. Good morning. Thank you for joining. So Julie asks, how is House on Fire going to bring the fire to our homes now that we need to social distance? We miss the good times. And obviously that was actually, thank you Julie, leading on to our next discussion, sort of understanding, Jiggs, obviously, this love and this passion for creating a platform for artists to come and showcase what they do. And I think what's so great is we discover artists through Bushfire. People we've never heard of, they have an opportunity to share what they love, and I mean it's beautiful what we see. There's obviously been a real impact of the festival happening as it normally does, last weekend of May every year in the beautiful Malkerns. The pandemic obviously meant that festival as we know it didn't happen. Share with us a little bit of really what the impact of that Bushfire festival is in the lives of both artists, communities, Eswatini. And now with COVID, what are some of the real challenges that you've had to look at just within this short sort of, this change in times?
Well, we were going into our 14th edition, so we like to feel that we're growing up.
Yeah.
And of course, we had to postpone the event this year in March, I think it was. We realized pretty early on that it was a no-show. We were in discussions with the Ministry of Health. And tourism, and it was really the only decision to be made. And it was a difficult decision because, we'd been running for 13 years consecutively. We were on such a good wicket. It was going to be the best year yet, as we always say. We consistently raised the bar. Yes. And then, we couldn't have the event, and it was a shock. It was a real shock to the system. But, this is an issue we've all been dealing with in our own ways. And I think we very quickly moved on to, communicating with our festival goers to let them know that their tickets were honored for next year. Okay. Glad to say that a lot of people have retained their tickets. And since then we've been looking to see how we kind of re-engage. We can't be together physically, so it was about developing the virtual digital event, which we've just held. We had over 6,000 people tune in from all over the world, people who wouldn't otherwise come to Bushfire. We had 130,000 people on local TV. So it was a grand gathering, and what an amazing exercise to kind of go through. And I think if anything, you know, this period is teaching us, you know, to think outside of the box, to be dynamic, to think quickly, and I think we can appreciate what's possible if we have to. And this situation has certainly kind of forced it upon us. So if you look at kind of the bigger picture, and I think, you know, whilst COVID is obviously tragic, it is very symptomatic of our times, you know, of the way humanity lives its life, you know, the way we live our life, the way we are not sustainable, and how that ultimately kind of, you know, requires that we fundamentally rethink our process. And you know, I really hope we are able to do it. How can we be more sustainable? COVID's an issue. It pales in insignificance to climate change, for example. So these are huge issues that we need to focus on. We need to be able to make quick decisions, and we need to make decisions now. So hopefully this is an opportunity to kind of reflect, breathe, and then go forward with the right action plan in place. This is a real opportunity, as I see it, but we can't fall into our negative habits. We can't be just winding up the spring to kind of launch back into life as if nothing's happened post-COVID.
Sure.
We've got to reflect. We've got to reimagine, and we've got to be more sustainable. I think that's the big takeaway for me: is how do we use this opportunity?
I love that, and I'd like to challenge actually us to think like that, because it's exactly what you said. Just because we've come through COVID, unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily say that we will change post-COVID unless we are deliberate. And I think this is the thing. Are we really serious about change? Are we serious about the things we want to do and the things we want to see moving forward? And like you say, this has taught us that perhaps we aren't as sustainable as we thought. You know, there are relief packages. There's all sorts of things that we're talking about. Tourism industry needs 100 million bailout. We know that that's probably not possible from an internal space. So how, or what do we need to do moving forward that's going to allow us to be different, so that when these kind of situations happen, that we can actually be sustainable? That's going to be really key. Courtesy, from your perspective, I know obviously times have changed, they are very different. What are some of the key lessons you've taken just from this change, you know, the new normal, as everybody's calling it? What can you take away?
Shelley, if you'll allow me, I think it's in line with what Sandile is asking right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
How to keep yourself motivated despite the booking challenges as an entertainer. How does one keep stable mentally and with financial challenges? Any tips on adapting and earning? I think it's pretty much in line with that. And Sandile is, you know, is big dreams. He's an artist and producer, Swazi born, based in South Africa now.
Lovely.
I think there's just so many things that have basically just like been presented to us by COVID-19, and one of them is the need for multiple streams of income. You know what I mean? So House on Fire. If House on Fire was the place where I was jamming and making money, now House on Fire is closed because of the situation. Does that mean I'm done? You know what I mean? So now we're having to think, what else is possible? What else can I do? And it would always start with self, asking yourself that question. What else can I do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, fortunately, I was fortunate enough to have that conversation with myself early on. I'm like, okay, so I'm a recording and performing hip hop artist. Great. What else can I do? Okay, I can host TV. What else can I do? I can jump on radio. What else can I do? I can be an event MC. What else can I do? So I kept asking myself those questions. What else can I do? What else can I do? And it's in that space of the what else that I am finding that sanity that he's talking about. You know what I mean? It's definitely the streams of income have been disrupted, greatly, but it's in that space of what else can I do that I'm finding some sort of sanity. Also, I'm realizing the need for financial literacy in this space. I'm definitely realizing the need for financial literacy. I'm glad that I'm surrounded by people who sort of like who are in the business space, because I think the most important thing, and this is what the MTN Bushfire Arts Roundtable is trying to create, having artists wake up to the importance of attaching the business element to the arts.
Almost like the business mindset.
The business mindset to your art, to your talent. Because a lot of the time, most of us just came out and say, hey, I got a talent, let's go.
It's a hobby.
It's a hobby, let me just go.
You're informal about it.
You're very informal about it. But now there's that urgent need to bring in the business side of it. And the business side of it also, once you're sort of like, once you have the business knowledge, there's things like saving. which right now he's talking about how do you generate income in this space. In the space where you're not generating income, there has to be something that you go back to or you fall back on. And your savings is definitely one of those places where you start to say, okay, every time a 100 Emalangeni check comes in from my performance, I take 20 Emalangeni and put it away, and then take the 80 Emalangeni and find a way, one, to invest it back into me as a business, and then because unfortunately what the illusion of Hollywood has done is that as soon as people get a paycheck, they want to look fresh, they want to look fly, they want to buy the new pair of Jordans, they want to, you know what I mean, buy the latest phone, they want to, like people are tweeting from 30,000 Emalangeni phones, but they're broke, you know what I mean? Because of the pressure of looking the part. Looking the part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're not thinking about the 7 years of plenty versus the 7 years of lack. So that's what this space has sort of just like, it's just sort of like a magnifying glass on certain aspects of running yourself like a business.
I like that.
And then for me personally also, back to Sandila's point, is the need to strike a balance between making a living and making a difference. When you find yourself in a space where you can't make a living, put yourself in a space where you can make a difference. So even though the money is not coming in like we would want it to be, or we would hope it would be, my sanity comes from the fact that I am still making a difference. I'm still having some sort of an impact.
Yeah.
And in that space of impact, doors always open.
Yeah. I love that. So focus on why you're doing it and your love and your passion, and then the money creation almost is a byproduct of that, but not the focus. And I think that's really key, not only in arts but generally as people. It's pursue your passion and your love and what you're good at and talented at. The money is a byproduct of that, and I think that's really very important. So I just want to come to Ntobe Sibia's comment, because I think it's going to segue nicely into kind of coming off what you said about this idea of impact. And I know we're talking also legacy project, we're talking what could the future look like. We might not be able to do it alone. I love what you say, savings, that's kind of the leading self space, personal mastery. But we also need a little bit of help. And I think this is where we also have a call to the powers that be, to interested parties, to strategic partnerships about how we could probably create something a little bit more different that allows us to be sustainable, right? So yes, the collective consciousness also moves at its own pace. Back then, arts were viewed as a side hustle. Yeah, and I think that's a major shift that needs to happen. To your point also earlier, Jiggs, we need to think of arts differently, right? And today, the creatives are in the forefront as they get to redesign the future and not just wake up to change. We all need a dose of creativity. I love that, absolutely. And we were just saying how arts can be a way to, in education, to support education, okay? So we know we have this kind of thing of left brainers, right brainers. People learn and teach in different styles. Arts is a way where you can actually get across very powerful messages. NGOs, World Health Organization, organizations are sending lots of information. We are overwhelmed by all of this, and a lot of us actually are not getting the information that we need in a way that is accessible. Arts is a beautiful way to transport that information, and in a way that engages us, that keeps us also entertained, but has such value in teaching us things. There's stats, percentages, numbers. I don't know about you, sometimes that stuff really gets me going, okay? So can we use art, whether it's drawing, whether it's song, poetry, whatever format it comes in, to share that information and to make it touch me so that I understand wherever I am in the world? So absolutely. Kim Duplessis, nice to have you, Kim. Kim's part of our team, of course. Painting is easy when you don't know how, but very difficult when you do. That's a quote by Degas. Sometimes knowledge gets in the way and keeps us stuck. Picasso said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. I would love to start a movement that specifically celebrates and values children's artistic expression. I'd like to segue into that, because what perhaps people are not aware of, if you have not been part of the Bushfire Festival, is it is very, very family orientated. And I think that also sets it apart from other festivals in general, that families can come and you actually have a dedicated space for children. Tell us a little bit more about what happens in that space.
Well, maybe just to go back a little bit. So Bushfire is not entertainment for entertainment's sake. We use the creative platform to engage, and in fact we have a call to action which is bring your fire, and bring your fire is about a collective response for positive social change. So it's about appreciating that, you know, given the space we've created, we've got an opportunity to, you know, create an environment, create a space where, you know, you're sharing information, you're encouraging people to input into that, you're facilitating dialogue, awareness, and action. So festival environments can be activation spaces. I think it's critical that we're kind of seeing festivals and the arts as more than entertainment. Critical in these times that we are able to kind of share positive messaging. You know, what is the message? What is your unique selling point as a business? How do you set yourself apart? How do you become relevant? And these are all very dynamic issues that speak to sustainability, whether it's sustainability of a product, whether it's sustainability of our environment. We have to have the collective will to harness our potential, harness what we know is right, to magnify this, the beauty we see around us. And, you know, we can stop and reflect, and that is our purpose. You know, we're part of this big picture. You know, that's my spiritual kind of vision. Is you know, it's not particularly religious, but I know that I'm part of a bigger whole, and it's about making sure that we are able to sustain that. So, going back to your question, you know, the environment is very supportive of families, the festival environment, because we want to feel that we can bring young minds, young artists, young creatives into a space, or kids who maybe haven't had that exposure, and we can light that little flame. I mean, it was my experience. You know, you kind of have something that happens to you. It was that MC Hammer tape, and that's a life-changing experience. You go back there, you remember that point, and you think, well, that's when the light was turned on. And that's what we do in the kids zone, and that's what we do through the family program at Bushfire, is that we expose kids to the language of the arts.
That's beautiful.
And we say, this is possible. And for some kids, you can just see, you know, things start lighting up. And that's powerful because, you know, hopefully we're getting more young creative individuals coming into, you know, take us where we need to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's very powerful and also very practically. And you know, for some of us who may not know, some get an opportunity also to run little stalls. So they're getting also exposed to kind of the business space, listening to clients, getting feedback, but also within the arts and how they can impact that space. Courtesy, you've been very involved with kind of the festival that precedes Bushfire, which is actually, it's part of, right, the Bushfire Festival, where you are engaging with youth. It so happens to be Youth Day today, June 16,
Oh, wow.
absolutely. The youth voice is a very important one, right? But tell us a little bit what happens in that week that leads up to kind of what we traditionally know as the weekend of the Bushfire Festival. There's hundreds of youth that gather. What are they doing, and what is your experience in that week? Just share with everybody.
Shirley, I think maybe anybody who lives in the Mahlanya, Malkerns area can just tell you that in that week, it's just magic. You know what I mean? You can feel it. You can almost touch it. When you have a space where young minds from all over the kingdom come together and just express themselves. One of the things that I say from day one, from the time they arrive to that place, is like, you're not at school. So can you just be yourself? Can you just allow yourself to have fun, obviously within certain parameters, but and I say to them, if your teachers have a problem, tell them to talk to me, type of thing, you know, because there has to be accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
I say talk to me. But then what happens in that space, and like what Jiggs just spoke to, is you can see kids having their aha moment over and over and over again. As one, they're watching the facilitators take them through the basics, because sometimes you just have like the know-how, and then you have somebody take you through the basics, and then it just like makes so much sense. You're like, oh snap, that's how you get to that, or that's why that happens when somebody now gives you the foundation or the basics. So they're given the basics, and then not only that, they're also then now given a chance to actually showcase, because as an artist, I know for a fact, the one thing I love to do the most is perform. You know what I mean? Just give me a stage, give me a microphone, put a camera in my face, and then allow me to perform. So now when you have kids and they've got like their peers from all over the kingdom watching them, they just go into such a different space. Sometimes even the teachers will tell us that this kid in the classroom, she's so quiet, she's so reserved, she's, you know, always in the corner. And then they see them on stage and they're like, who is this child? It's a totally different person, it's a totally different beast. And that's what art does. It allows the kids to express themselves, first of all, but then what we have done over the years as the Bushfire Schools Festival is, it's thematic. So then we will go into a space of sexual and reproductive health. And then we ask the kids to tell us the story from their perspective. We'll go into the space of child abuse, and we allow the kids to tell the story from their perspective. We'll go into the space of environmental awareness, and we allow the kids to tell the story from their perspective. And you will always know, as a parent, as a grown-up, you will realize that no matter how much you might have tried to talk to them or reach out to them, most of the time we miss the point in terms of telling them in a way that they will understand and in a way that they will connect with. So that's why I'm saying it's just magic that happens in that space when you give kids a voice, and then give them the tools, the basic fundamentals for artistic expression. They fly.
I think that's beautiful. I love that, giving kids a voice, but it's also about giving arts a voice, right? And I think, Jiggs, I'd like to come to this part of the discussion where really what we want to understand is, obviously you've spoken about how it would be great if arts could be part of a curriculum, so formalized curriculum within schools, and I think just segueing of what it would mean and what it could potentially look and feel like. I think a lot of us get stuck on the how, and I think often that's what has maybe delayed things, or I don't know. But what we want to understand, Jiggs, is how do we make this space more sustainable? What are the things we actually need to really think about very earnestly and seriously? And obviously you've had experience traveling the globe within the sort of festival space, the continent itself. What have you seen? What are some of the lessons we can learn that we can really be intentional about adopting here in Eswatini?
I think first and foremost, there has to be the will. For people to come together to make it happen, there has to be a political will.
Yeah.
So, governance needs to respect and appreciate the role that the arts can play.
Yes.
I often say Swaziland is a living culture, and as part of that culture, we have such a rich form of expression. Whether it's in our dress, dance, food, and talking about unique selling points, and with all the sensitivity. We need to be able to kind of position that, and it's about harnessing that potential. Yeah. So, yes, kind of an arts program would certainly help facilitate that, but I think introducing that into a curriculum is certainly a challenge. I know that the Ministry of Education are certainly working on it, but it's a very complicated process of kind of firstly coming up with a curriculum, a relevant curriculum, coming up with a means to kind of teach the curriculum, because you got to then kind of teach the teachers.
Yes.
So there's kind of major kind of logistics involved, major costs. So this is a process that's happening, but what can we be doing? How can we support and create an enabling environment for this to happen? And the Schools Festival is one of those spaces. Courtesy does a lot of amazing work all over the show, and there are countless others. So we need to be part of a process where we are kind of fueling this opportunity. I think it's about recognizing the opportunity, recognizing the potential that the arts have as a major facilitator for change in our lives, in our communities, and the creative opportunity is what we can imagine, and that's infinite, isn't it? I mean, something new comes up and you think, crikey, where did that come from? It's brilliant. Why haven't we done this before? It's all there. It's about unearthing it, and it's about realizing the value, the innate value in creative expression, and we need to give that the mantle and the space that it requires.
I think so, and the voice that needs to be heard. And I love that. Political will is definitely a part of it, but it's also civil society's will to make that voice be heard.
Yes.
And then the politicians will sit up and listen. So, and I think just to make it sustainable, it's obviously perhaps thinking around a foundation, thinking around how we can mobilize resources to then support artists, because we know in the beginning stages it's not going to be easy. But can we recognize the arts formally? And I think that's great. I mean, I did speech and drama at school. So I love what you're saying, and perhaps it's a lot simpler than what we think, right? But we need people to come together. We need collective efficacy in this space. We need ideas. We know that obviously there are a lot of teachers out there who perhaps are looking to the what's next for me in this space, that have a real calling, a passion on their hearts. How can we actually bring it into the space and do it? And I think sometimes it's like what you said, Jiggs, trust yourselves, go with the idea, you'll learn as we go. When we started this Connect, we kind of just jumped in and said, hey, let's put some cameras up and just reach out to people, and then you learn along the way. And I think it's having that kind of courage to do, right? But we need support, we can't do it on our own. So let's think very practically about how we can really lean into the space and make things happen, but make it different. So I'd like to be part of that discussion. I think it's a very important one that needs to be had, and that needs to be consistently had. Hey, it's not a once-off, it's not an event. This is a pattern that we need to create. Okay, I'd like to turn us just to a few more comments. King Terry, hello, hello, hello. 2 big players, he says, exclamation mark. Yes, you too, King Terry. You too. So we'll come back to it in a moment. Okay. Right. What would be, just to kind of round off this discussion, what would be sort of the call to action that we can have? Some very practical things, Jiggs and Courtesy, in the space of if we are really to be intentional about recognition, number one, but also bringing this space to life and making it sustainable. What is the call to action?
Well, for me, it all comes down to being relevant. And I think the more we can go into how our artistic expression can support and articulate our objectives, our higher objectives, you know, all the better. I think, you know, it is about kind of, I think for artists out there, maybe just kind of, you know, going back to artists who are looking to kind of think about how they could use this period well. Like for me, it kind of goes back to, you know, what are you trying to achieve? What is your story? What is your unique selling point? What are you trying to achieve, and how does that kind of resonate through your process? And you know, I think there's so much that we can collectively support in terms of, you know, reaching a space where there's resonance, having people come in and support a particular view around whether it's, you know, environmental sustainability, child abuse, sexual health. There's so many issues out there that need our attention. And as you were saying earlier, Shelley, you know, the arts have always been an amazing kind of opportunity or kind of mouthpiece, vessel to share information. So I would wholly encourage people to use that, you know, use the arts to share information in a very dynamic way. And there's so much you can do. I think it's very important that you are tapping into your story, that it's a story that you are familiar with, that you're in sync with, and that it's not a concept that you're borrowing from popular culture. And I know that the kind of American market drives that in a major way. How can we tell our own local story? And I think Tami's been a perfect example of, you know, finding that balance where, you know, there are some kind of commercial elements, but, you know, there's a local flavor, there's a nuance, a local nuance that's coming through. And I think that's so important for us all to find, you know, how are we relevant in terms of who we are, in terms of telling our local story, but how that kind of resonates with people around us, because we recognize that local flavor, we understand it. I've often thought the kind of Zioni whistle, you know, the like that could become a major hip hop anthem, like, and I'm sure it's probably been done, but you know, how do we harness?
I love that.
How do we harness our local
flavor, nuances,
and we've got to go into that. We've got to dig deeper, and I think there's a lot more to find there.
I love that. I love that, and that's challenging. You know, we talk tourism. We talk how can Eswatini be more attractive. And we're not leveraging our existing kind of resources and magic. I think that's beautiful. A destination where we really place arts at the forefront and invite people to be part of that journey, to unlock, like you say, this potential, this burning desire, using it as a vessel of expression. So I think I would like to just bounce off that, Jiggs, and challenge, you know, whether you're NGO, whether you're private sector, when you're providing training, when you're going into communities for community dialogues, are you considering arts as a way to message? Are we collaborating, or are we only thinking one-dimensional? Can we be more effective? Can we be more inclusive? And arts is a beautiful way to channel all these messages and to dialogue about important things. So let's think differently. Let's create this partnership. I think it's hugely important, and let's be deliberate about it. So those are running projects. Look, how have we included arts as a medium to just have these discussions, to have activations, activities, whether it's a community, whether next time you have a team building, what are we doing in that space? So I think I'm also challenging myself as I speak and share with you, but that's what's going through my mind. Courtesy, from your perspective, how is it that we come together, whether it's Eswatini, in the region, on the continent, to really lean into the space?
So Shelly, I just want to throw a question, out there, and this is just like stemming from something that Jiggs said. So think about it. How many people come to Eswatini for bushfire, come to Eswatini for Umhlanga, come to Eswatini for Ingwala, and all of that, just like the cultural experience.
Yeah.
What happens in the cultural experience? There's singing, there's dancing, there's fashion.
Definitely.
So, if the whole world will come to Eswatini to experience our version of singing, dancing, and fashion, why is it then that we're not taking it out to the world? They are coming here for it. So why don't we just take it to them? And I can tell the story of how the trajectory of my music career changed immediately when I started incorporating cultural elements in my music. It changed completely.
Sure.
And that is, in all honesty, that is what has kept me relevant for 20 years and some change. Incorporating the cultural elements. To this day, my biggest song is Gwaimane.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt, Courtesy, and I think this is really important for any artist out there, because I travel a lot of music markets around the world, and buyers or bookers are looking for artists who are able to offer something unique and different. And it speaks to their locale, it speaks to their experience, it speaks to their story. It's not about a Swazi rap artist, ripping off Drake.
Sure.
Or hip hop art, they can get that in New York. How are you offering something unique? How are you offering something different? And it's a challenge. We put it out there. It's a challenge for you to kind of meet your story, because it's all too easy to kind of try and replicate what you see out there on on the popular culture programs. It's like copy paste stuff, and no, you're not gonna get there. You've got to go that one step further, and it's that challenge of meeting yourself. It's the challenge of being vulnerable. It's the challenge of opening up to your story and your process, and it's about listening to yourself. Go there, spend some time there. There's an opportunity at the moment. Just following on from what Courtesy is saying, it's so important that you're able to tap into that, be relevant, and be heard as somebody who has their own story to tell. That's when people start taking interest. If there's somebody in the US, they're going to say, "Oh, that's different."
Yes.
Somebody in Cape Verde, somebody in Nigeria. It's about those unique selling points, and we have to achieve that as artists, as businesses. It's important.
I love that message. So for me as a consumer, also what I'm thinking is, how intentional are we when we go into, to purchase CDs or music or log on, whether it's on YouTube or whatever, to our African base and actually discover that? Are we going to the obvious? Or are we looking actually to support? Because that comes back to it. How are we supporting our local artists? And so, I'd like to challenge us, next time when we're looking for music, or when we're looking for any form of arts expression, are we being intentional about our choices and really looking to support those who are authentic, who are telling their authentic story, who are needing a stage to just share what they have? I can facilitate that. I necessarily don't sing, but I can listen, and I can support, and I can weigh in, and that's the difference I can make. So that would be my challenge also out there. It's a two-way street. Artists, lean in, tell your authentic story, but we need to listen to it, and we need to be willing to support it. And I think that's also when you talk will, hey? The will is in each one of us to play that part. So that would be just my sort of challenge as well from this perspective to everybody out there. We're obviously coming towards the end and we will wind up, so maybe if you have some laughter afterwards to share, but let's go to some of these comments. Muriel is saying it would be fantastic if more NOPs worked together to share knowledge and use of talents in a multifaceted way. Absolutely. Can we create a formalized, sort of space to come together? So we have Business Eswatini, do we have Arts Eswatini? A platform where we can come together regularly, really challenge some assumptions, but put in place a process where we start talking, how do we make platforms like this and spaces for people to come on board and accessible and create those strategic partnerships, right? With Business Eswatini, for example. Okay. King Terry, big thank you to Pacific Institute for this amazing platform. Part 2 of this discussion, please. Artists need to utilize such discussion to ask the questions answered by the right people. I agree. Courtesy Deep, we've got hands coming up from Gail. Creative thinking, Philippa Thorne, has impacted beyond the arts sector. How do we include creative innovation into other sectors and in sustainable development? Nice question. I think we've spoken a little bit about it, but I think also, when I think just very practically from a business space, so when you buy a liter of fuel, there's a certain amount of monies that go to different aspects, right? And I think we need to think about also that within a space, within the entertainment and arts industry, when we're selling tickets, is there an amount that we could go into a foundation that would support supporting artists in times like this, but also through creating more innovative ways to then share this artistic expression. So, this is how we formalize things. Obviously, mobilizing resources, how can we do that in a really meaningful way?
Shelley, I think to Muriel's point is there has to be a commitment for various components of our fraternity to come together. For example, it's happening within the HOTAS environment. It's lovely to see how local tourism has come together. There's obviously a real need that, that there is a combined and collective approach to how we recover from this scenario. And it's encouraging people to discuss, meet, share ideas, and I think this has to be kind of one of the takeaways, is how we work more closely together, and that we aren't kind of duplicating and kind of operating in our own spheres, kind of duplicating, and it's not sustainable. How do we how do we come together? It is a bit of an ideal, because that's not where we're from. Everybody likes to do their own thing, traditionally. How can we use this opportunity to work together?
I love that. Yeah, very, very important. Okay, great. Gentlemen, it's been wonderful having this discussion. I love that. Maybe there is a part 2, and I think it will be around perhaps putting some real concrete ideas onto how we get the hub together and how the hubs interconnect. So I think it's having the discussion around arts, but also how arts can complement business, how arts and tourism come together. So all these different prongs and how we create this ecosystem. I love what you said. It's a living, breathing thing, as opposed to being sort of a formalized numbers on a paper, project. But how do we get it to breathe and most importantly be sustainable? We can do it. And I think that's what but we need to be intentional and have that will. So stick with us for a little bit more, Jiggs and Courtesy, but thank you very much for sharing. Please keep your questions and comments coming, because we continue the discussion even once we finished with this specific episode. As you know, we are always here about wanting to also showcase what people are doing locally within their own businesses and industry, and it's also a time to discover what's happening on the ground that we may not know about, but also it gives us a chance, you and I, to support these local businesses. So behind us, you may not be able to see in the shot, but we actually have breakfast lined up, because we love breaking bread after an episode like this with anyone who's in our space. So today we'd like to introduce you to Sihle, who's part of the Dough Bar. So I picked up some donuts this morning in Tubungu from Sihle. So those of you who live in Tubungu, this is great. She's just up your street, literally. And Sihle shared with us donuts, and they actually are in the shape of TPIS. So she did letter donuts. So I asked Sihle as I picked up this box this morning, Sihle, what made you go into this donut space? And she said she was frustrated around not finding her type of donut wherever she went. And so instead of complaining about it, and asking somebody else to do it, what did she do? She went home and she put her ingredients together and she created the donut that she wanted. And I think it's beautiful. So what's great about it is, so she does these donuts that are tasty but fun even to look at. You know, some of us eat with our eyes, so I love that. So they're beautiful to look at. So Sihle started the business in January of 2020. She uses the best ingredients. They are no artificial preservatives or flavorings, so that's always a real plus. It's on a pre-order basis. So she actually made these donuts this morning. So what she prides herself on is being able to provide us with fresh donuts, and they are available on the day you're able to pick them up into Bungu. It's all about, she calls it absolute freshness. So I love it. Eh?
Why weren't we eating them during the show?
We just needed to get some serious discussion out, Jiggs. I was worried we might get sidetracked by the donuts, but we'll be able to break bread now.
Sorry, Shirley, if I can just like jump in. I love something that you said in there. She was frustrated because she couldn't find her personal preference or her own type of donut, so then she decided to do something about it.
Yes.
And I think as a creative, especially for the artists out there, you can learn so much just from that.
Yeah.
Just from that. When Jiggs couldn't find his kind of club that he could go to, he built House on Fire. When I couldn't find a space that I could go to for poetry, I started First Friday. I started Rhymes and Laughter. I started, when you can't find what you're looking for, create it.
I love that. That's an opportunity
That's
right
an
there.
opportunity
If you're not
right
finding
there.
it, it's a gap.
There's a gap.
Step in, trust yourself.
Yeah.
Trust that you will get there. Even if you don't know how at the beginning, you will learn the how along the way. I love that. Just take a chance.
Thank you,
yeah?
Sihle. Thank you for that word.
Thank you, Sihle. Look at all this inspiration.
Yeah.
And this morning we had the lovely team from Pink Lotus who came in this morning to deliver us. So we've got some black rice bowls. Black rice, apparently, they are the only place in Eswatini that are serving black rice, we've heard. So we've got some black rice rolls, we've got some quinoa rolls, we've got some wraps. So Pink Lotus was closed, but I also know, and I'm sure many of you in the local context would have seen, that Lindsay was very much behind also supporting local women who were sewing fabric-made masks from right at the beginning. And a lot of us supported her in that. So just also, you know, heads up to Lindsay and the team at Pink Lotus, who were closed but still continued to work behind the scenes to support local artists. So as you know, Pink Lotus based here in Mbabane, serving simple, healthy, delicious foods. So their menu, as they claim, is unlike most that are offered within the Eswatini industry. I think Lindsay also found a niche, found a gap in the market, and has created something very unique. Each and every item on our menu is good for the body, creates a taste sensation in the mouth, and is pleasing to the eye. So I mean, you know, who said you can't have your cake and eat it?
Oh, okay.
So Lindsay and the team, thank you so much for just being a delight this morning and treating us to all of this. As you know, you're able to support these two businesses. We will obviously share all their contacts. Please order the donuts, order your lunches. We asked Lindsay, is she creating have a partnership with a business that can deliver? Because for many of us, some are still at home, some are working from home, some are in offices. But it would be great if you can just phone up and have your food delivered to you. So that's great. So we are working to find out who are the partners that she's working with. But please meander on down. The space is buzzing again. You can feel sort of there's another level that is lifted. There's a lot more people out there. Continue wearing your masks, please, as you continue to navigate all the different spaces. If you are going back to work, please keep your masks on. Stay safe. We are not out of the woods yet. In actual fact, just listening to the news this morning, there's a new wave of COVID that has come out of China that is linked to, is it salmon that they've discovered? So, and obviously we know that this is a long-term thing. So let's keep leaning in together, supporting each other. Thank you to our breakfast partners for that. And yes, ladies and gents, we are winding up. It bringing us very sadly to end of this Connect with you today. A big thank you to also mention, I don't know if you can see it in the shot, but we've got these beautiful Perspex dividers that are here. And we'd just like to give a mention to Hilltop Tables for setting that up. They're on these lovely stands, and that's allowed us to honor the social distancing, but also to have some some protective gearing. Jiggs' first thought is, in case we get into a heated discussion, it will keep us from not boxing each other. So it's keeping us safe either way. This is a safety measure, right? So if any of us are looking out for it, I know a lot of businesses are going into creating these screens at till points just to, to create some safety with staff members. So Hilltop Tables is one, and there's obviously a lot of other partners out there that are doing this for us. So to Jiggs and Courtesy, again, thank you so much for joining us today. You can get hold of them and we will share their details. Let's continue having the discussion, ladies and gents. Even though it might be done for this episode, the discussion continues. So thank you very much to those who have joined us, King Terry, Gail, Sihle, Calvin and Sean Lowe from Johannesburg, Greg, all of you who were on with us today, thank you very much for choosing to be here. From the team behind the scene, I wish we could turn the camera, we're going to have to. We have Linda Rego, we've also got Pinky Nyandora, and of course we've got DT Photography and DT TV. You can catch what is happening in his world. Let's say goodbye, Charlene Mtetwa, Juan from SA, Tandi and Mardi in Johannesburg, and Tombientle from Afro Botanics, Ralph Edwards, thank you for joining us today. We are live, obviously, posting this on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so you can keep connecting, send us your thoughts. But as always, be safe. I know Ellen always says be kind to each other, and I think what we'll say is be kind to yourself too. Okay, bye for now. Are we still on?
Behind the scenes, yeah.
Have you cut us? Oh, we're still on. Are we still waving at the phone?
Are we still on?
Okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure, it took a while for me to warm up. The coffee is like, I was like, somebody give me some coffee.
I know.
Hello Eswatini, hello world. My name is Thamsanqa Sibandze, aka the Courtesy of Hip Hop.
Hello everybody, Sanbonani, I'm Shelly.
For those of you who already know us through The Connect, and for those who are tuning in for the first time, welcome.
Now The Connect was really about taking a chance. We had already hosted a number of in-house events where we brought people together to learn skills and share ideas. We found this hugely valuable.
We always knew we wanted to continue to connect to our followers and listeners, but also to meet new people. And with everything being shut down, we thought this would be a great new way to connect.
Connecting to us is not just about being able to interface. It's a whole lot more. It's about allowing us to self-discover by sharing interesting information from the cognitive and behavioral science space.
Equipping ourselves with practical tools and approaches.
About growing awareness, informing each other, sharing our diverse stories and experiences.
Showcasing what it is that our nations have to offer, what individuals and organizations are doing on the ground, your unique impact.
Now, the situation we are in has in many ways leveled the playing field, given us a chance to stop, think, and do something.
To turn inwards as the outside has been closed off. An opportunity presents itself where we have a captive audience, giving us a chance to tell a story, our story.
Best practice is an important outlook to have today. But often we think that best practice means copy and paste without considering context, culture, resources, flavor, color, and texture of our unique environment. We want to be able to look into our continent and share with the world what is happening here at home. Provide solutions, share thinking, and outlook from here to the world.
You are invited. We call on you to support us so that we can continue connecting on our platforms. Share with us what's going on in your place in the world, the continent, and further afield. We want to exchange ideas, learn from each other, and implement to build solutions that serve us, that are by us, for us.
And it's really very simple. All you need to do is connect with us, the Pacific Institute Swaziland. We are on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget, we are live every Tuesday.
Peace, love, and happiness, and connect.